Good evening, cricket fans, and welcome to Sock TV and the Spot On Hose and Fittings Clubhouse. I'm your host, Anthony Telfer, and it's an absolute pleasure to share another exciting episode where cricket is more than a game, it's a way of life. So before we dive in, don't forget to like, share, and comment and keep the conversations alive and vibrant. The Clubhouse is a space where we celebrate the game, relive the highlights, and share stories with teammates, opponents, and umpires over a cold beer or a softie. So whether you're a grassroots cricketer or an international star, there's something here for everyone. And this podcast is brought to you by Spot On Hose and Fittings, specialists in hydraulic hose and fittings for the mining, manufacturing, agricultural, industrial, and construction industries. So make sure you tell Jeff and Ben Charlesworth that Telf and Walshy sent you. And mentioning the word Walshy, as always, I'm joined tonight by my great mate and Aussie legendary broadcaster, Peter Walsh. Welcome back, mate.
Hello, Telf. Yes, lots of stories. Last weekend, I went to Ballarat to catch up with a friend of mine, and we hadn't really touched base face-to-face for nearly 50 years, but we did work in Ballarat in the public service in the late 70s, and we stoked the wood fire up, munched on some nachos, and we reminisced. The much-loved puppy, Hunter, enjoyed the road trip, and the reason for me mentioning it was we needed to talk. We needed to catch up. It's on the phone and messages, that's fine. But sometimes it's tripe. When you're only an hour and a half away, you can jump in the car and you can get out there and see your mate. We can watch a few of the horse races and we can spend some quality time and have a chat about all sorts of things that, might be causing us some form of consternation. And I think that's what we push hard now when we do this program regularly, and we love it. And that is keep saying to our guests, and we'll introduce Joe in a sec, pick up a phone, say hello. You can send an email or a text if you want to, but it's even better to be face to face with your mate or to at least make the contact. And that's me getting off my soapbox for tonight, but lots more to come as we head into a rather wintry evening here in downtown central Victoria. Telf.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, and well said, Walshy. Yes, it's really important that we stay in contact with our mates. But one of the things that's caught my eye in the last few days, I might look a little bit tired. I sat up and watched the India and the Poms battle it out in England, and they both continued to pile on the runs. What was great was to see Brooke out for 99, which was fantastic and exciting Test cricket. But a massive shout out to a couple of my mates, Walshy, Steve Cope and also Marty Ryan, who are currently heading towards the West Indies and Barbados. And last night, Marty Ryan was lucky enough to go to a black tie affair in Barbados where the West Indies recognised 50 years since they won the ODI World Cup in England. And it was quite funny. I woke up this morning and saw my mate, Marty Ryan, on West Indies Facebook walking along the red carpet, and right behind him was Clive Lloyd, and he stopped and he said, "Can I get a photo with you?" So there's my mate on the red carpet in the West Indies getting a photo with the great man and legend Clive Lloyd. So plenty of photos and videos coming our way. We've got a couple of guys on the ground in the West Indies. So as the Aussies look to go into battle against the West Indies tomorrow night, I think it is, Walshy.
It is, that's correct. Yeah, ready to go on 3 tests and a few changes. And then, of course, we wait for the Ashes aren't too far away. Telfy, baby.
That's for sure. So, look, tell you what, before we get started, I want to acknowledge, we talk about men's health. I do want to acknowledge the IF Project from Queensland and Clint Hoffman, and also Blooming Minds from WA. So if you're doing it tough and you want to reset, have a look at both these organisations, or even reach out to both Walshy and myself. We're always on the phone and available to chat. So let's get tonight started. We are privileged to welcome to the Spot On Hose and Fittings one of Western Australia's most enduring and respected fast bowlers, Joe Angel. Joe, standing at an imposing 6 foot 6 inches tall, was a giant of Australian cricket, both literally and figuratively. He made his Test debut in Australia in 1993 at the WACA against the West Indies, where he famously forced Desmond Haynes to retire hurt in just his second over. Joe would go on to play 4 Test matches and 3 one-day internationals for Australia between 93 and 95, sharing the field with some of the game's greats, and we'll get to hear a few stories from Joe later on, but it was at state level where Joe Angel truly etched his name into Australian cricket history. Over a stellar career with Western Australia, Joe claimed a remarkable 419 first-class wickets, making him second highest wicket taker in Sheffield Shield Pura Cup history, only behind the legendary Clarry Grimmett. Joe played in six Sheffield Shield finals, securing victory in 4 of them and helping to build Western Australia's reputation as a powerhouse of Australian domestic cricket throughout the 90s and the early 2000s. Known for his brutal pace and bounce off that whacker, famous lively wicket, Joe was a nightmare for opposition batters, but a much-loved teammate and very respected figure in the game. Tonight, we're looking forward to diving into the career of Joe Angel, and we welcome him to the clubhouse. Joe Angel, fantastic to have you here.
G'day, Tal. G'day, Walshy. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Now, you may have to just speak up a little bit.
Okay.
We've discovered that Joe is 1,600 kilometres north of Perth, currently at the end of his shift, and the internet isn't that great, but we're hoping that we can get tonight's show up and running. So I tell you what we do, Joe. Whenever we do a clubhouse, we always like to find out a little bit more about our special guests, and obviously we'll get to your cricket career later, but maybe tell us a little bit about those early days and where it all began.
Yeah, well, I certainly never thought I would end up where I did. I was like every other kid, probably running around up in the hills area where I grew up in Perth. I played cricket in the summer, played footy in the winter, and just enjoyed doing that. Played country week for a couple of years when I was around 16 or 17, I think it was. So I was always sort of playing out of my age groups, particularly with cricket. I've always been a reasonably big fellow, or tall. I'm certainly bigger now than I was. I was a skinny bugger once, you might find it out, but I was pretty skinny, weighed about 90 kilo, I think, when I first started playing first grade, which they're going to have to chop an arm and a leg off to weigh 90 kilo now, but yeah, that was, so I started up there playing country week, did that for 2 years and thought I enjoyed playing on turf a bit more than on the synthetic stuff. So I sort of rocked up down at Midland Guildford. I'd sort of moved down to right at the base of Greenmount Hill, just on the scarp, one of the outer suburbs there of Perth, and Midland Guildford was the club for the area, and yeah, just rocked up to training and tapped a little old Tom, who was our net captain, Alan Bascom, on the shoulder and said, "G'day, wouldn't you want to go to cricket?" And sort of went from there. So yeah.
Wonderful stuff. And let's maybe quickly sort of go to I guess how you ended up at at the Wacker, and obviously fell in love with that bouncy pitch, and obviously your first game, playing at the Wacker or with the Western Australian team.
Yeah, well, my debut was a little bit unusual. So both my first grade debut and my first club debut were both quite unusual. And my test match debut was the only one who actually knew I was playing the night before. So my first grade debut, I've been playing sort of I've come right from fourth grade right the way through up to second. It's been doing reasonably well. And then ended up, a mate of mine failed the fitness test on a Friday night. So I got a phone call sort of Friday night, "You're not playing twos now, you're playing ones." So that was sort of there. And then, my first class debut was even more short notice. So I was working actually down near Fremantle way at the time. And like I said, I was living up the base of Greenmount, so it's about an hour away. Get a phone call about 8:30 in the morning of the day of the game. So what had happened is, so I played a couple of practice games. It was the squad, did okay. Thought, if I can get a few wickets during the year, I might get a game maybe after Christmas or something like that. But turned out, so the two incumbents were Bruce Reid, Terry Allman, Brendan Julian, and Mark McKay. So that were the 4 bowlers for the first game. So Big Shook Reid, he'd come down crook before the first game. We played in New South Wales. So apparently they ran Peter Capes, another fantastic left-arm fast bowler for WA, and Capesy was crook as well. So I wasn't even the first one they thought of. So, I just lucky, probably tried a bit hard early. I think I had, 8 or 9 overs, about none for 40 or 50 odd, and then managed to get 3 to clean the tail up and sort of got myself on my way. But yeah, certainly great memories. Played with some fantastic players, and yeah, very strong era of WA cricket as well as Australian cricket.
Yeah, and we'll get on to some of those legends a little bit later on, but maybe just a quick one before I throw to Walshy. That first Test match at the WACA, and obviously we mentioned in the intro that second ball or the second over that you bowled to Desmond Hames. You obviously made a mess of him.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I nearly had a wicket my first over. Unfortunately, Craig McDermott, he caught one down, so when they didn't have the boundary rope, so he caught it and then hit the edge of the fence and then shoveled it over, unfortunately. So I went from 1 for none to none for 6. First over. Yeah, unfortunately, I hit Desi. I mean, you never really want to hurt someone, but you try and intimidate. He's a lovely fellow. So I went and checked on him after play and that sort of stuff. I love Desi Hames, the way he went about it. He always had a big smile on his face. And yeah, you never want to see people get hurt, but part of my job was to intimidate. I knew that I was going to get a few, so I was going to try and dish a few out before they got some of me.
Very good. I'm going to throw to Walshy because he's desperate to ask some questions to you.
Joe, was there ever any doubt that you were going to be a fast bowler? I mean, you were 6'6". You had obviously the dimensions, but going through your mind, did you have anybody that you focused on and you thought, I'd like to be a bowler like him?
Oh, well, I mean, growing up as a young boy in Western Australia, you had Dennis Lilly. Everybody wanted to be like Dennis. I loved the West Indian fast bowlers like Joel Garner and Malcolm Marshall and these sort of guys. And then obviously one of the other all-time greats is Wasim Akram. I think they're the guys, and Sir Richard Hadley and these sort of guys, they're the absolute echelon to me. And you sort of hope you can be, half or a quarter as good as some of them, and you might be a chance to get somewhere. So yeah, they're the guys I sort of looked up to.
Were you a different person when you played the game, when you crossed the line and you walked out and were thrown the ball, and might have been, say, Mark Taylor, the skipper, who said, "Righto, Joe, it's your turn." Did you change at all, or did you need to get yourself psyched up in any different way?
No, I mean, I'm naturally competitive. Whatever I do, if I'm playing golf, I'm playing tiddlywinks, man, I'm going to try and beat you. So it's just the way I am. I can't help myself in that regard. So I don't apologise for it. I think it's part and parcel. You're not going to succeed, at the highest level if you haven't got that little bit of, not necessarily mongrel, but you've got to fight and want to do it. Because there's plenty of players with ability who don't perhaps have the mental fortitude, because that's as much a part of it as the physical ability. So, you've got to be, prepared to outlast the other one. And that was, I live by the motto that, I can't get a wicket if I'm not bowling. So.
No, that's fair enough. We'll talk about Wasim Akram and Waqar Younis and Pakistan in a moment, but where did you get the nickname Hell's Dust?
That was Greg Matthews, actually, Moe, who's my first class wicket. So he's a bit of a left field character on Moe, but he just come up with that one. Sort of back in the day, there was a lot more mixing with the players after the change rooms, and I remember, he came in and somehow he came up with he called me obviously, but either Hell's Angel or Angel Dust was he came up with that one. So he's always thinking a bit left field, Mo. So
he was. And tell us about the feelings of when you became an Australian player and all of a sudden in the field you had Mushtaq Ahmed, who was a spin bowler for Pakistan, and you had Waqar Younis and Wasim Akram, and they were playing against you, and you were playing in conditions that were brutal. They were hot and dusty, and if you drank water that someone else had been drinking, you'd finish up with a stomach ache. You'd have to be a bit careful. The classic story was Dickie Bird used to cart around Mars bars and baked beans. He was he was involved in his 60th Test match when you played against the Pakistan lads, and that was in Karachi. But it was so different. So what was it like to get used to it?
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I suppose Karachi was probably similar to the old Sydney wicket a bit in a way, or even an old Adelaide Oval wicket. It would get a bit low and slow, the ball would reverse a bit. The funny thing with the outfield actually looked good, but it was actually quite rough. I didn't find The heat too bad. It was a little bit humid, not nowhere like Brisbane or anything like that, but they were very different. The two, we played there and then we went and played up at Rawalpindi, which, that wicket then was a new wicket. It had plenty of pace and bounce. It was almost felt like we were back at the WACA, or I certainly felt that. But yeah, it was just a fantastic experience. I mean, I'm very much, eyes open when it comes to, going to different places and meeting different people. So I reckon that's a great thing that you can do. I think it's a good, I always say to guys, if they want to go and play cricket somewhere overseas, I said it's as much a life experience as it is about cricket. And you make so many friends and you learn so much about yourself as well. So,
good call. And of course, you played in a game where it was so tight and who was going to win? Nobody was. Mark Taylor couldn't get a run in these first two matches as the captain of Australia. And when you looked like you were going to win, it took one of your best mates from Multan, the city of dust, Inzamam ul Haq and Mushtaq Ahmed to put on 57 to win the game by 1 wicket, only the 7th time in Test cricket history that had happened, and you were out there when it happened. I'm being serious about this, can you actually recall, because Ian Healy tells the story, when he got to the change room, he was crying. He was that disappointed about not having that win.
So it was fun. It was a fascinating game. Like, fabulous game to be in, so disappointed to lose it. I mean, I suppose you've got to put some context in this. So ended up in the second innings, we only had 2 frontline bowlers, which was myself and Shane Warne, because Glenn McGrath had gone down with a hamstring in the first innings. So I remember I had the bowl with Mark Waugh. He always likes to chirp about that. And Tim May he slept really badly with his neck, and the poor bugger, he couldn't move. He actually couldn't bowl either. So we were really limited in terms of, our specialist bowlers. So Othman did a fantastic effort. I think Warney bowled, I don't know how many overs, I think it was 40 plus overs on the last day. I think I bowled nearly 30. We went right to the end, a couple of decisions, perhaps went the wrong way. Like I said, I'd love to have DRS. It's funny. I actually went back and found YouTube of that Test match and because I've never seen a replay of when I think he was on the pad. And I reckon it's pretty bloody dead, but unfortunately, I've given one out, and then he just decided to start whacking him, and then Mushy just hung around with him, and they got there, the buggers. But it was a hell of a Test match, and Dickie Bird was the umpire, so he was he wasn't exactly a fan of Pakistan, but it was the start. We used to have one international umpire and one local umpire, which I reckon they should go back to, by the way, but. I don't think it should be 2 internationals. I think you should have one home umpire and one local umpire. Like, I think of an Australian umpire, like Paul Rifle, can umpire a Boxing Day Test or something like that. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Or, any of the English umpires can't umpire at Lords. Like, just crazy in my mind. So one of these.
Yeah. And look, one very quick one from me before Telf. The memories that you've got, thrilling 3 tests, and then of course South Africa came out and played in the one-day arena. Did you get to get on the bus to go into Afghanistan?
Yeah, that was a fantastic trip. I said I love that sort of stuff. So we got out. There was only myself. So the Khyber Rifles control that area. So when you want to go up there, it's like you're like going to another country. We had to send our passports off because supposedly it's one of the biggest drug lords or whatever was controlled the area. So it's government. Pakistan land, but if this bloke says you're not coming, you know what I mean? But so we got the okay, and there was Khyber Rifles every 400 metres along the road. So it's about a 25, 30 kilometre drive, I think, up to the start of the Khyber Pass, and then you go in, you drive in, and they've got this big market there, so you can buy bazookas or machine guns, you can buy white goods, and you can buy like toiletries. It is the most fascinating market. So if you want a bazooka, you got the money, you could buy one, you could buy a fridge, and you can buy some toothpaste. So it's fascinating to walk around. Warney didn't get out, so he stayed in the bus, and he got someone apparently come up banging on the window and saying, "You go!" So he got quite spooked. He wanted to go, but and then we went. They took us to another spot where they had the Khyber Rifles had a bit of a pavilion thing which actually looked down on the Afghanistan border. And they said, "Oh, does anyone want to have a shot?" An AK-47. I said, "Oh, yeah, I'll have a go." And Glenn wanted to have a go. McGrath, Pigeon loves his guns. And the only other one who had a go was Kepler Vessels, who was the coach of the South Africans. I thought, geez, when are you going to get a chance to shoot one of these? So, yeah, different part of the world, different, but it's just how they are. So, you got to go in with eyes and open arms.
Yeah, true enough. And all I'll say with sincerity, Joe, is I had the pleasure of being in your company for 5 or 6 weeks, and you fitted in so well, and it was an absolute pleasure to know you. And it's good that you've got so many memories. And did you have we talked about Des Haynes and you clobbered him, and you talk about the Wazzy Makrams and the Wakar Yunuses. Do you keep in any contact with those people? Because you are an extrovert, you love having a chat, you love keeping friendships. What about now?
Yeah, no, more so a few of the WA boys, really. I mean, if I bump into someone, I'll say g'day, but yeah, just, I suppose, the tyranny of distance. When living in WA in the first place, because we're so isolated, makes it a bit difficult. But, if I run into people, I'll say g'day, and people, are always happy to have a chat. Cricketers are pretty good like that. Like, I find if I ever get to go to our OCA day, which is usually on during the test match, it takes me about 45 minutes to get from the door maybe to get a beer, because you bump into all these people you haven't seen for ages. So you stop and have a chat for a few minutes, and it takes you a while, but it's great memories, and no specific catch-ups, I suppose, but you just sort of touch base with people every now and again, and you run across them, have a chat.
Yeah, well spoken. Telf.
Yes, and you talk about those low, slow wickets, obviously in the subcontinent, Joe, and you got to play and excel on one of the bounciest wickets in the world, being the Wacker. What was that like as a quick bowler, knowing that you were going to work every day, to work in conditions that just suited your bowling down to a T?
Yeah, it's just, very fortunate, like I said, the Wacker, the bounce, the carry, it was a great seam ground as well. So, the Gabba was another ground that had good bounce and so forth, was good for the bowls as well. But it wasn't a great seam ground because of all those multicoloured seats, made it a bit difficult for the fielders. But certainly at the Wacker, your edges tended to carry and all that sort of stuff. So fantastic place. And we had so many, great fielders, guys like Mike Valletta, Tom Moody and these sort of guys, and, Timmy Zura when I first started as a wiki, and then Adam Gilchrist, of course. They just didn't miss too much behind the stumps. So, and, you had a guy like Hoggy as well running around who's, as good a fielder as I think, Australia's probably produced. He certainly took plenty of great catches off me, saved so many runs and run outs and all that sort of stuff. I think people forget about that sort of thing with Hoggy, but he was, to me, I'd put him on the same par as like a Ricky Ponting and Andrew Simons. I think he's that good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wonderful. And you've obviously played cricket over your cricket journey with lots of superstars who've all gone on and obviously spent a lot of time in the media. Did you ever have any ambitions of going into the media and, following, Brendan Julian maybe, and partner him behind the mic and out, traveling the world?
My brother from another mother.
Yeah, exactly right.
No, it's funny with BJ because he's not really, he wasn't really a big cricket watcher or anything. So it's funny that he's ended up there. He does it so well. People always said I probably had a head for radio. You know what I mean? So, but all the blokes used to mix me and BJ up, but none of the women. But that's a whole other story, I suppose. But I suppose I would have done it, but probably didn't have the same profile, and that's the thing. I probably didn't play enough, for Australia and all that sort of stuff. So, I've always done a little bit of radio commentary here and there, and that sort of stuff, and always happy to jump in and have a chat here and there. But just way things worked out. I suppose after I retired, we ended up moving up here, up north here. My boys were young. My wife has sort of lived in mining towns, so she was quite happy to come up here. And it was great. We really enjoyed it. Great lifestyle, even with the isolation. It was a great place for the kids to grow up. You make of it what you do. So, I regrets really.
And you talk about all of those quick bowlers that obviously that you thrashed it out with at the WACA. Off the field and training and working with some of those exceptional bowlers, Dennis Lillee. I don't know whether you probably crossed paths and got coaching from him, but Terry Alderman, Bruce Reid, Brendan Julian, the list goes on for quick bowlers out of WA. It must be like a fast bowlers union from WA, is it?
Yeah, definitely. So, everyone looks to help one another. Dennis used to always come down. You used to always see him a lot early in the year, back when they had the Lilac Hill Festival match. So Dennis played in, I think I played in nearly all of them, bar about 3, and I think Dennis played in the first 10 or 15, I think it was. And it was funny, I never really picked up on it because I was still playing at the time, and he'd always come down and he'd have a bowl. He'd come down 2 or 3 times with training, have a bowl. So he'd at least bowl probably for 3 or 4 weeks before the festival match. And it sort of dawned on me later on after I retired, and particularly when we moved up north, and I gave cricket away and hadn't played any cricket for about 2 years. And Keith, the late great Keith Slater, rang me up. He said, "Oh, we want you to come back down and play in the festival match." I said, "Oh, okay." I thought, I haven't had a bowl for a while. I better go and practice. So I actually went down with the Wickham guys here and just went down to Nets and said, "Do you mind if I have a bowl just so I can, try and see if I can remember where they go and get them down the other end." And I ended up, which that helped me with that. I ended up started playing cricket back up here again. I had no bloody gear, so I actually had to ring Gilly up. He got back the gear for me. So no bats, no nothing. So but got back into playing, and everyone's always been very helpful. Bruce Reid was fantastic early doors. Terry Alderman. Catch up with Terry every now and again when I do some cricket coaching trips. Fantastic, bowler, great fella. We played a lot of golf together as well. So, all those guys are willing to help. And even, like Sir Richard Hadley, I remember one of the festival games we were playing New Zealand. So they brought Sir Richard over. He was on the Chairman's 11 game. So our bowling attack was Dennis Lillee, Sir Richard Hadley, Jeff Thompson, myself. I can't remember who the 5th bowler was, but Dennis and Tomo, I think, it might have been Dennis and Sir Richard opened the bowling, and Tomo bowled first change. I think they had him about 5 for 30 or 5 for 40, so I think they get bowled. They said, "Oh, don't bowl, we'll bowl a few part-timers and see if they can get a decent score, otherwise the game's going to be over too quick." But, fantastic to sit and talk to a guy like Sir Richard. Again, one of the absolute icons, fantastic bowler. You could just sit and chew the fat with him all day.
Yeah, and just on Sir Richard, we had an over 55s Australian Nationals in Christchurch, and he was the guest speaker there, and he captivated everyone for probably a good hour while he spoke and talked about his cricket journey and stories, and I haven't laughed so much with some of the stories that he told, and it would have been a great opportunity for you to share the cricket field with him.
Yeah, he probably got sick of me asking questions, I suppose. But I just I was like Billy Skrowski. I just had him tagged, wherever he went, I'd try and sit next to him, and just love chatting to those sort of guys because you can always learn something.
Yeah, exactly right, Walshy.
Joe, carrying around some heavy weights, and I'm not being critical there, you're 6'6", and you did say at one stage you were 90. That was in terms of when you got on the scales, and the scales immediately said, "Get off." Well, we won't talk about the actual weight, but tell me.
Don't worry.
Now, you talked about very briefly, you said knee replacements. Were these because of injuries that you suffered during cricket?
Just wear and tear, yeah. There's sort of no more they can do, I had a fair few operations over the journey. They clean them up and do what they can do, but it gets to a stage where, so like I said, that last ACA trip I did in October 2016, where we played in Manjimup and Margaret River. I used to always say to the guys, I said, we played T20 games and we can't play these things. I said, I'll buy my 4-stroke because then I'll be cooked. If I chase the ball on the field, it's like I've got a flat tire. So it was just something, and when I decided to do it, one of those small print things you've got to have in your health cover, so I had to wait 12 months so I had to put it in there. But yeah, I would have done it 12 months earlier. But yeah, I'm so glad I've had it done. It's made such a difference, and it's amazing the amount of bowlers that have contacted me since because they're a bit worried about it. And I said, man, like there's a bit of pain involved, but it's like doing any injury rehab, really. That's the way I looked at it. You do the rehab, you get the range of movement, and yeah, like, you know, being able to sleep, walk up and down stairs. I can play 18 holes of golf without needing a train to pick me up. Yeah, I'll do it again in a heartbeat.
Well, the reason I'm being incestuous in asking that question is I've just had a knee replacement. Yep. And I'm going through the early stages of rehab. I'd run quite a few marathons and quite a few half marathons. Yep. Did you, when you were getting back to feeling good, did you think you ever got back to feeling as good as you were?
Well, hard to say. I mean, I haven't really tried to bowl a cricket ball, you know, like put that sort of pressure through my knee or anything like that. I feel pretty good though. Like I said, I think from where I was to where I am now, yeah, and like I say to everyone, I said it's all about the rehab, and you've got to do the rehab straight away. It's the thing with these, you've got to push them, you've got to do the bending, you've got to do the icing. You know, I say to people, use the ice, use the painkillers. That's what they're for.
Yep.
So you can, you know, get that flexibility of movement, because you can't, if you don't do it at the start, it's very, very hard to do it later on.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Now, well, I've got one here for you, my friend, and I've tossed and turned about whether I should ask you. So I hope it's okay because of the because you see people all the time and you're out talking, etc., etc. Have you noticed in your lifestyle that you lead now that there are more people, and you get the feeling that they might be keeping things to themselves? They might not be confident enough to share some issues, some personal issues, and that's what this program's about. And I just wonder if you've noticed any change.
I reckon, yeah, that's big. I mean, it's a lot more now. I think, you know, the AFL and that have certainly led the way, I think. You know, cricket probably, yeah, is probably still catching up a little bit. I think they're better than what they were in terms of that. I suppose although the thing you think about with cricket is you've always had that change room where you can sit and talk with people, or, you know, you can just go and have a beer or something with someone like you talked about earlier. Cricket's always been very good about that. It's probably more the individuals being prepared to say something if they need to say something or want to say something. Yeah, so you probably need to do that more as a one-on-one thing. And yeah, I try and do that with you know, I do a bit of coaching, and I've been back at Midland Guildford for a while now, and I'm the bowling coach there. So I try and do that with a few of the guys. So I'm not just talking about, you know, cricket. I'm talking about, you know, how they're going. You know, you know, what's happening with work, how you study, or whatever, anything. You know, so I think it's just so you can sort of learn a bit more about them, and they might feel a bit more comfortable if they need to share something with you.
Yeah, good on you. Well spoken, Telf.
Yeah, powerful stuff. And we here at the Spirit of Cricket, Joe, encourage everyone to reach out to their mates. And we've got the IF project, and we've got Blooming Minds in WA, another great organisation. And I think they've been breaking out into the mining industry. So you may come across Blooming Minds in your travels, Joe. Let's have a look at Shield cricket. You played obviously a lot of your cricket with some absolute superstars from WA. You played in a number of Shield finals. Your first year of Shield cricket, you played in a Shield final. How lucky are you?
Well, I say that to people all the time. I didn't fully appreciate it at the time. I remember, so I talked about Terry Alderman before. So I played 7 games that first year. I ended up being the leading wicket taker for WA. But at the end of the year, you know, we got that final ebbed and flowed over the 5 days, and, you know, we were pretty level after the first innings. Both teams, I think, might have been a 10 or 20 run lead, and then we were 3 for 3 in the second innings. So Jeff Marsh was out, Mike Valletta was out, Tom Moody was back in the shed. So we were 3 for 3, and there's a couple of young punts called Justin Langer and Damien Martin out there batting. And so JL just having his pick it in, and he was digging in for the fight, and Marto played one of those lovely counter-attacking innings that he could do, and he got out right on stumps. I think we're about 4 for 80 at stumps, but it just changed a bit of momentum. JL batted the next day, I think made 150. Wayne Andrews got a few with him. Timmy Zura got a few. And we got about 300 in front, I think it was. It might have been a bit more, a little bit more than 300, but around about 300. And so we thought at least we're back in the game again. New South Wales got to 2 for 200 in the second innings. So Mark Waugh was batting with Steve Smith. So that's the not the Steve Smith that you all know, but the left-handed Steve Smith who could certainly belt him, a bit like a Dave Warner, I suppose, but a bit taller. But Smithy could belt him. So yeah, sort of came back and I managed to knock those two over. Sort of, I think, consecutive overs, and then Bruce Reid and Terry sort of then came and ripped the middle order out. I think Big Tom Moody got the last wicket, so we ended up winning by about 40 runs, and it was a hell of a game. And yeah, Justin and I were dancing around like lunatics at the end of the change rooms, and Terry was knackered, sitting in a chair, and he said, "How many games have you buggers played?" And then we both went box 7. So, and I thought, oh, this is just regulation, this will happen. And it took us probably another 4 or 5 years before we made a Shield final, let alone get a chance to win one. So yeah, certainly learned to appreciated the other ones, a bit more. Didn't appreciate the first one enough.
Yeah, and great memories, obviously, of that first Shield final. I'm going to take you somewhere where you probably don't want to go, but it's mainly because I'm in South Australia, and a couple of my mates played in the Shield final where South Australia hung on. Peter McIntyre and sorry,
DRS was required.
So Peter McIntyre, a good mate, and Jamie Siddons, another good mate of mine, who batted for nearly a week in that Shield final. But a pretty exciting climax to that game, and obviously you just couldn't get rid of those two tail enders in George and Macca.
No, well, just so again, I pulled my side muscle in the second innings, so I was sort of bowling under a bit of duress. I had nerve blocks done in my side, so I could try and get through. I remember saying to Tom Moody after tea on the last day, I said, "Look, I'll start." I said, "Bowl me for as long as you want me to bowl, because once I stop, I think I'm going to be cooked." So I think I got Timmy Nielsen out, and then I got down to the last two, and I think BJ and Brendan Julian and Hoggy bowled at the end. And Hoggy had, I can't remember if it was Peter McIntyre or Georgie out. One of them was caught a back pad, absolutely smashed it. But unfortunately, the umpire gave it not out. Just to hang on for another, or whatever it was. We thought we'd still, get the wicket. I think we still had 40 minutes or 50 minutes to go, but they managed to hang on the buggers. I mean, we dominated the game from day one right the way through. So, but I mean, even though it's a victory for South Australia, it was credit for them being a home final, but I'm sure it was probably a bit of a hollow type victory when you don't actually win the game, you know what I mean, even though it's a ball. But it certainly set us up for a dominant period after that, that's for sure.
Yeah, and in that Shield final, I think Gilchrist made a lot of runs, didn't he?
He made 150 or 200 in the first inning. Yeah, I think we made 500 or something. So we, like I said, we dominated the game pretty well from go to woe, and it was sort of bit of DRS, and we'd be have another one in the cupboard.
Yeah, very good. Walshy, I'm going to leave you with Joe to ask maybe some more stuff about Shield cricket and finals.
Well, the first one is going to be a tough one, and it's not a yes or a no or good or bad, but who's your best mate that you've made since you've been playing cricket? I don't care as to what level that person was, but is there someone, if you were going to jump on the phone and ring up and say, "Excuse me, I want you to come round and have a meal with me," and you felt like you were talking to your best mate of cricket?
Yeah,
would it be a meal? Would it be a meal or a beer?
No, it could be a bit of both. That's a really hard one. Yeah, that's a really hard one, Walshy. Jesus, hard to narrow that down. I mean, there's like Brendan and myself played so much cricket together in Midland, Guildford, and then for WA. Even though he's over east, we don't probably speak that often, but like you said, when we cross paths, it's like we've never left. So he'd be up there. Simon Kadich is another one. I'd love catching up with Tom Moody, when he's back, but he's always off flipping around the world with all these different T20 leagues and stuff like that. So he's, so, any of those sort of guys, really. I can't probably say one over the other.
No, that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
We'll ring up every now and again. you know, Gilly, like you said, you run across these sort of guys. You know, I'm probably as guilty as anyone that I don't pick the phone up sometimes, but you know, as soon as you see someone, it's just you start chewing one another's ear off.
Right. Now, one more on cricket and then one on golf. Is
Right.
Brett Lee the fastest bowler you've ever faced?
He's up there. Yeah, that was seriously quick when he broke my arm.
Tell us about that incident.
Well, I should have been on strike, Walshy. That's the worst thing. So my teammate Sean Carey, who's now based in Florida, works for the US Tennis Association. I'll actually be catching up with him later this year. We're going for a US trip, so I'm going to catch up with Scary. He was at the non-strikers end. So the ball before I got hit, Bingham tried to York me, and I clipped it out through mid-wicket, out to the big square boundary at the whacker, and it's 3 runs all day, every day. All right, so I've run 1, 2. I touched it, come back for 3, and Scary's at the other end, and he's got the hand up. No, not coming. Yeah, I was scared. So then Bingham's trying to bounce me, didn't quite get up. I had an arm guard on, but I made sure I was cutting my elbow. A little gap here, and got me right just where the sort of the band is on the glove and below the arm guard, and yeah, got the broken arm, unfortunately. So, but yeah, it's one of those things. Like Bingham come and saw me in the hospital because they had to put a plate in that in. But I said, mate, feelings, I'll be doing the same thing to you next time you're back. So yeah, that's what it is.
Okay.
I mean, you know, it's, you know, you're trying to battle on the field, and yeah, it's yeah, he was quick. Ian Bishop bowled quick in that first test as well, and Wazzy Makram up in Royal Piney when they I don't know if you remember Walshy, when him and Wakar just kept going on and off in the first and second test match.
Yeah.
And then John Reid decided to say, right, you can't bowl for 4 hours or whatever it was. And he came back in to bowl. Steve Orr was batting. I remember he got warned for intimidatory bowling, like it was rapid. He bowled seriously quick, but he was so angry that he'd been banned from bowling. But they were taking the mickey because they were going off having showers and doing all that sort of stuff, I reckon. So, yeah, so that's fair enough. So,
So
yeah,
that's fine.
quick, yeah.
All right. Well, let's just digress. One more from me then to tell. You unequivocally, you've talked about golf. You play a bit of it. What's your handicap?
Oh, about 20 odd now. 20. Yeah, I just don't play enough because I basically do like 1 week on, 1 week off. So it's only every second week potentially, and it also depends on what I've got on at home. So my wife works a similar shift to me. I work a Wednesday to a Wednesday. She works a Monday to a Monday. So I try not to play golf when we're off together. You know, a few brownie points and all that sort of things are pretty important, Walshy. So,
Well,
yeah,
you've got the story, so you keep going with it.
well, it's you know, like, so, you know, I'll try and play, you know, when she's at work, if I get the opportunity. I don't like playing on weekends because it's so bloody busy and too bloody slow. So that leaves me probably a Monday or a Tuesday, you know, if I get a chance to play. But yeah, just don't play often enough. But yeah, love it. Actually, last swing I stayed up here for an extra couple of days and played in the Karratha Pro-Am, which was good.
Yeah, a lot of the cricketers seem to do it, Joe. A lot of cricketers. I know you can talk about Ricky Ponting and how good he is, but it seems to me that that's their way of when they've finished a game of cricket and they get a spare day. If they can get out on the golf course, they'll enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a good way to wind down. I love it. Like I you know, there's still a few that do it. There's some that don't. Like I loved it. If we did a 2-week road trip, you know, it meant you had a few extra days in between. You got to play some fantastic courses. You know, I played at the New South Wales Club and a few other places when you're away. I mean, yeah, you're not going to get to these places otherwise. So, yeah, I just think it was a great way to spend a couple of hours as well, rather than, you know, probably go to the bar, which you'd get to eventually anyway. But yeah, I like my golf, but just don't play it often enough, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's a lot of honesty in that comment, Joe, isn't there, Telf?
There sure is. And Joe, looking back, you know, over your career of cricket, what do you miss most about it, the cricket lifestyle, and what were you happy to have left behind?
Oh, well, you miss the banter, change room banter. You know, that's always good fun. I'd love to be able to run out there and do it all again, if I was physically capable, because that's the thing, that's that competitive edge. You want to try and test yourself against the best. And like I said, I'm like that now when I'm playing golf, playing squash, playing whatever I'm doing. I'm going to try and beat you. I can't help myself, so I make no apologies for that. I think it's part of what makes you tick. And I think anyone like I said, at the top level, if you don't have that drive to compete, then you're not going to survive. So yeah, I'd love to be able to do it all again, but I'm realistic enough to know that I was fortunate enough to play for 13 years, and I played 4 Test matches. Would love to have played more. Never really got a extended run at it, but that was just Australian cricket was so strong. I played four more Test matches than most people, so that's the way I look at it.
Yep. And are you still involved? You mentioned that you're a bowling coach at a cricket club. You're still involved in other areas outside of just coaching in cricket?
Yeah, so I do. So Midland Guildford, I've been back there for a couple of years. So happy to sort of try and help a few guys there. I do a bit of regional stuff for the WACA. When I'm up here or I'm working, they don't have a cricket office or anything up here, but I've got a few kids in the area, so they'll come out here to Wickham. I'll normally knock off work an hour early and do a session. So I've been expecting I've got a new guy running the program, I believe. So the guy who's the WA Country Cricket Manager said I should be getting some contact soon, but I haven't done anything as yet. But yeah, so like 2 years ago, we did a bit of a program for the kids up here where we sort of ran through sort of August and September, leading into cricket season. And once that cricket season, we obviously let them go until they've got enough training and stuff doing that. Yeah, I usually come over. I've started coming back over to New South Wales and Victoria, doing some cricket camps there for a guy called Sean Brown, who I've done for a few years now. So he's like doing his camps, and he does me WA as well. So yeah, I like like I said, if I can help one kid, one person somewhere, then that's good. So that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, well done, Joe. And the Australian World Test Championship, you would have followed that with a lot of interest, no doubt.
Disappointing
definitely
result.
Sorry?
Disappointing result.
Yeah, definitely outplayed by the South Africans. There's no doubt about that. But is Australian cricket, do you think, now in a rebuild phase with obviously, Khawaja coming to an end, but they've lost Davey Warner as well. They're now on the search for openers and the bowlers. How much longer can Starkey go for and Hoff? Tell us what you think at where we're at.
Yeah, it's very close to a transition period. It's hard because the guys have been so successful. I think we shot ourselves in the foot by mucking around with the batting order. Certainly, we didn't do Marnus any favours by shooting him up to open. It is a specialist position. You've got to pick specialist openers. I would have loved Cam Bancroft to get a few runs last year, but he couldn't buy a run when he needed to, unfortunately. And, you got the young fella from New South Wales, Constas. Jury's still out a bit for me, but, I'll give him a chance. I mean, he's got to be able to, he's got to be able to make hundreds. It's no good making 50s. But yeah, certainly in the bowling attack, I mean, they're the best quartet that's ever played the game. So yeah, but they're certainly near the end. But there's a few young guys around. They just opportunities is a hard thing because those guys have been so successful and pretty durable by and large. Apart from the Hoff, he's probably had a few issues the last 18 months, 2 years, but he's been pretty durable up to that, and they've all been pretty durable. So it's just one of those hard things. But I say to all the bowlers I work with, I said you just got to be ready to go because you don't know how quick you can be. You look at someone like Amali Beardman who got called up to that one-day series in England either last year or the year before because everyone fell over. So you just never know how close you can be, particularly as a bowler. So you just got to be ready.
And we'll talk about your career and obviously how successful you were and you played a lot of Shield cricket. Do you think Shield cricket is still that area where the players are going to come from, or are they going to be pulled out of T20 franchise cricket that's obviously going gangbusters?
It could be a bit of both. I think in terms of long-form cricket, and I certainly hope Test cricket continues there, you need guys playing first-class cricket, because there's guys, the very best Test players are usually very good, white ball cricketers as well. But some of the good white ball cricketers aren't necessarily good first-class cricketers. So if you understand that analogy, so you need the guys who can play 4-day cricket, and it is you've got to be able to. I say to our guys, you know, when I'm talking to players all the time, I talk to batters, I talk to bowlers about understand the situation of the game, you know, right here, right now. That's what you've got to do. I think sometimes players look too far ahead or they worry about what's happened. I said, you got to worry about here and now. You know, next ball focus. You know, I say the best thing about being a bowler is you control the game. Because everyone's got to react to what you do. The batter's got to react to what the bowler does, and the fielders react to what the batter does. So, you know, you got to dumb it down sometimes because, yeah, people make this game way too complicated. So it's a simple game, keep it that way.
Exactly right. Maybe one last question from you, Walsh, and then we'll let Joe head off for the night. And I know it's way past your bedtime.
All right, one from me, Joe, and I hope that you know the answer.
All right.
Tell me, where's your test cap, your first test cap?
It's in my cupboard in a drawer somewhere, Walsh. It's never been worn.
It's never, you put it on when it was presented to you, didn't you?
It never got presented back in the day, mate. Different.
Really?
You got a bag, back in the day when I played, so you got a bag full of gear. They gave you a bag full of gear that had shirts and jumpers, and your baggy green was in there. I think it's good the way they do that now. We do that at Midland Guildford. We have a baggy, it's a black and white cap, the Midland Guildford cap, and we do the presentations like they do now with the baggy green. I think it's fantastic they do it.
Yeah.
But all mine was just in my bag, mate. And I've never been a cap wearer. I'm like the old white floppy, and that's what I preferred to wear. I don't need a cap to compete for my country. Put it that way.
No,
So,
that's a very strong answer. And look, the next question I was going to ask was, who presented you with the cap? But you've already told me that nobody did.
Nobody. So yeah, it's just in the bag. So yeah, I'll probably give it to my oldest boy's my sort of most keen cricketer. So he'll probably get it eventually.
Now, just on that too, and sorry to hang on for too long, but how many kids have you got?
I've got 3 boys. So
all play cricket?
No, they played a bit of cricket back sort of when they were at school. So the oldest one's the only one still playing a bit of cricket. He lives and works up in Kalgoorlie. He's an underground miner. He blows things up. He's a shot firer, so he's doing quite well for himself. And he plays up there. Just he works, does a week on, week off type thing as well. So he obviously has to work around his shift work. My middle one is actually taller than me. He's a very good basketballer. He's a good cricketer as well, actually. But he loves his basketball. But he just playing with his mates. And my youngest one was not a bad footballer, but he's sort of given that away as well. So, like I said, you can have ability, but if you haven't got the drive, then you're not going to get too far. So,
Who do you barrack for in the AFL?
I won't say it too loud. So West Coast Eagles.
That was loud enough.
They're looking better, Walshy. So, who are you barracking for, mate?
Oh, I'm the same as Telf. We're Hawthorn.
Oh, okay. Well, they're going okay. They're going okay. Better than West Coast at the moment, but we're showing some signs, I think, hopefully.
That's true. There you go. Telf will finish up on a very positive note for the old Hawkers, eh?
Yeah, exactly. The only way that West Coast are going to go well in the future is if they can retain their players, Joe. They've got some good kids coming through, but everyone on the East Coast are trying to take them off you.
Yeah, it's the modern game, isn't it, where they players move. West Coast have got a pretty good track record of keeping players. There's lots of guys from the eastern states that have come to WA and stayed there. They've got to start having a bit of success. I think most players, some players will go for money, but most players want to have success. So you want to be where you're competing and you think you're a chance to win a flag. So that should be the main goal. You certainly get paid pretty well, so yeah.
100%. One last question from me and then we'll let you go, and it's a little bit more of a serious one, so sorry to finish on something serious, but what's your advice for young fast bowlers coming through today? And you've obviously been there with your body, with your knees and everything. The advice on managing their bodies and building that right mindset to get to that top level.
So, there's a lot of physical effort required, so they've got to be prepared for that. There's a bit of pain. You're going to be sore. If you can't handle the physical workload and the soreness and that sort of stuff, I say, well, probably don't bowl. You're in the wrong game. So if you can be, you've got to be able to understand the difference between injury and soreness, and you've got to work through it. But, players rehab better now. We started doing ice baths and all that sort of stuff right at the back end. I wish we had done that at the start because they really help your recovery. You pull up so much better the next day, all that sort of stuff. So it's about you've got to do the physical work to be able to outlast, because there's plenty of, like I said, there's plenty of talented bowlers, but you've got to be able to be on the park and stay on the park, and that's the game. So yeah, it's not just being the fastest bowler or swinging it the most, or you've got to be able to be on the park and be able to compete and bowl over after over after over, because it becomes a battle. You've got to wear most times you've got to wear the opposition down.
Yeah, very well said. Now, I said we wouldn't finish on a laugh, but I'm going to throw to Walshy now because he's got to thank our sponsors. And if just listen to this, he's been practicing it all week.
Yeah, but this is not a comedy routine. This is dead serious with our sponsors, you know. True enough. Okay. From manufacturing to delivery, wherever you are in Australia, there's only one name you need to know. Spot On Hose and Fittings, based in Wollongong. Yes, Wollongong. Now with new offices in Newcastle, Spot On is your go-to team for hydraulic hoses, fittings, adapters, valves, and connectors, of course, with delivery available Australia-wide. And here's the best part. You've got on-site testing facilities, so you know you're getting the highest quality every time. For the mining, manufacturing, agriculture, industrial, or construction industries, Spot On is the team to see. Tell Jeff and Ben that Telf and Walshy sent you. Get it. Spot On every time. Spot On Hose and Fittings, keeping Australia connected, one fitting at a time. Just call me Angel in the morning.
Beautiful, Walshy. Hey, couldn't have done it any better, mate.
Tell you what, he's earning the big bucks now, Joe.
Oh, well, that goes without saying, doesn't it?
Maybe we should connect you with Spot On Hose and Fittings, because they do specialise in hydraulic hose and fittings for the mining industry.
Rio's a bit of a funny thing with our, they use specific vendors and all that sort of stuff. So they may have, through some of the, like Rio Coal in the area where they are, they may have there, like we use local vendors here, that sort of stuff. So they're pretty big on that sort of stuff. And and so a lot of them are global vendors too with some of the stuff. So yeah, they're all way above up here.
Above your pay scale. Hey, Joe, it's been an absolute pleasure. And look, if you've enjoyed tonight's episode with Joe Angel, then we'd love you to like, share, and spread the word with your cricket mates. Let's keep the spirit of cricket alive and thriving. Keep an eye out for next week's episode. We've got a couple of ripping guests coming up, and there could be another one coming out of WA, Walshy, but we've got the player draft on Sunday night for our Spirit of Cricket T20 franchise competition in Mildura in September. So I think there's some former state players playing and a former international player who's nominated for the draft. So it's going to be a ripper night on Sunday night, Walshy.
Always good to chat with you, Telf. And Joe, really good to catch up, mate. It's been a long time, but still the memories are there.
No, it was great. Like you said, that was a great trip, that one. Different times, the way that, journalism was done back then, but it was great. I mean, you guys had to do it pretty tough like us on that trip, but it was, like I said, I was fascinated by the way, Pakistan and Sri Lanka and those sort of places operate. It's so different to what we have in Australia. It makes you appreciate what we've got, I think.
Well spoken.
We are the lucky country, Joe. Walshy, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Thanks for everyone for tuning in tonight to SOC TV, and we'll see you all in the next episode on the Spot On Hose and Fittings Clubhouse. Thanks for joining us tonight.